you all hear me clearly?
Yes, sir, your voice is
Yes,
absolutely
sir.
clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay, let me increase. Oh, okay. The volume was low at my end. All right. Okay, fine. So in this class, what I will do is, okay, so no questions from the previous class, correct?
No, sir, no questions.
Okay, fine. If you have any questions, ping me on that group chat on WhatsApp. Okay, and I will see how soon I can reply. All right, so let me share my screen and we will go through the syllabus first. All right, can you see my screen?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good. All right, so here is the thing. So last time we went through some introduction portion of C language, and today I will go a little deep into this. There are some very simple fundamentals, but unfortunately, what happens is that many students and many learners of C language don't really understand those things clearly, and it may or may not impact their ability to be a programmer, but still it will be they will be much more comfortable if they understand these concepts clearly. Okay, so one of the things that I mean, I know it sounds silly, but sometimes it is better to be thorough and better be safe as far as your understanding is concerned. Okay, so uh, what happens is I have already covered the basics of the programming language. Okay, what does a programming language do? And what is the meaning of programming and what is the meaning of a computer program? Okay, so these things are already completed. Okay, now the thing is that whenever we are writing a program in any language, it does not matter. Okay, the first thing that we do is to write the source code. Okay, now these are simple things, but it is possible that many students are not very familiar with these terms. Okay, and when they go out into the industry, they might encounter these words very often, and they might think that okay, I have not learned anything. That is not the case. So here I have started an online compiler. Okay, and so I will be using this for the time being, and before I figure out how to use a compiler that I already have with me. So this thing that you see, your computer program, this is called source code also. That is just another name of it. Okay, there is nothing to be scared of. It is the same thing. Okay, whatever the program that you write is also called the source code. Okay, now the source code obviously will be stored on your hard disk. Okay, I mean the computer's hard disk. And when you create the object file and the executable file, those things when they are created, what they will also be in your hard disk. Now the executable file that gets created, that will also be, it is also a file, right? It is nothing but a file. It is an executable file, but that file will also be in the hard disk. Now when that file runs, it allocates memory for itself in the RAM. When we say computer memory, we mean the random access memory, not the hard disk. Okay, so that is where the program allocates memory for itself. Now, if there is anything like this written, say for example, I write over here int x equal to 10. Okay, shoot. Uh, okay, fine. I have to log in. All right, now I go back here. All right, so when this source code gets compiled, okay, and linked, and ultimately the executable file is created, okay. Now, when you run that executable file, what will happen is, say for example, this line will run, line 5, okay, or rather the equivalent of this line will run. It will allocate memory in, again, where? In the random access memory for this variable called x. Okay, now I will be going through these details of what exactly happens, and there is something called a symbol table that will also be in your random access memory. And going forward, I will just say memory. And whenever I say memory, it means the random access memory, not hard disk or any other storage device that is attached to your computer. Okay, this will get allocated during runtime. Okay, many students, and this was because when I started, I did not have good teachers. I'm just self-taught. Okay, I used to just read books and understand and think and learn on my own. Okay, books were there, but many of them were not covering the basics, and things were not clear to me. Okay, so for a long time, I was assuming that you create the executable file and somewhere the memory gets allocated. That is not true. Okay, the memory for this variable will get created when the program runs. Now, this is obvious to you maybe, but when I started learning, I was just learning by reading books, and there was nobody to teach me anything. Okay, so I just wanted to cover this small point. There is one more thing that might be obvious to you, but I would still like to highlight is this, that when this executable file gets created, okay, it is in machine instructions, which in turn means it does not matter whether you create the executable file using C or C++ or some other language. Okay, once that executable file is created, there is no way of knowing whether it was created using C language or C++ or some other. Okay, it is an executable file that just executes on the operating system. That's it. Okay, so you might have noticed that there are some other executable files. For example, when you start Word, okay, there is an executable file called winword.exe. The name might have changed now, but when I started using Word about, say, maybe 15, 20 years ago, okay, the executable file for that was winword.exe. So any operating system will require an executable file to execute a program, right? So that is what we are doing over here. Whereas the executable file for starting WinWord was being created by using Visual C++. Okay, they might be using a different language now, but at that time they were definitely using Visual C++ to create those software, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, etc. So that is a few things about this part that we see. I will even highlight this to you. All right. So another thing is now operating system. Again, if you, I can say a few sentences for the about the operating system. So operating system is also by itself a program, a computer program. Okay, it is the interface between you and the computer. Okay, because you cannot issue machine level instructions all the time. Okay, theoretically it is possible, practically it is impossible. Okay, so that is why we have got different operating systems. So you may or may not have heard of this, but long back there was an operating system called DOS, disk operating system. Okay, it is that operating system that made Bill Gates famous. Okay, so it was a character user interface operating system. There was no graphical user interface, what we call in short GUI. But that was also an operating system that would allow the users of the computer to use the computer. Okay, so that was also an operating system. Almost certainly you have not heard of it, but the interface would look like this. Okay, so now we have a command prompt that is provided in in Windows, and it looks like this. Okay, so earlier, so right now what happens is if you log into your computer, it looks like this, right? But when we would log into the computer, it would look like this. Okay, if disk operating system was the operating system. All right. So anyway, so that is a little bit about these things. Um, Compilers. So again, I did talk about this a little bit during the previous lecture. That is, compilers convert your human-like language computer programs into machine instructions. That is, they convert them into they actually convert them into object files and then finally into the executables. But that is a detail that is not in the scope of this course. Okay, so we will not go through that too deeply. All right. So anyway, now algorithm and steps to solve. Okay, so this actually from here to here. Okay. Okay. So in this part of the syllabus, we have a few things: algorithm. Then we have got flowchart, pseudocode. All right. Actually, this is one single topic that we should understand. So you will be surprised that even now, after so many years of experience, and the fact that I'm using a tool to generate the code, I still use flowcharts and pseudocodes. All right. This idea, so please don't think that this is something theoretical that you will use just to pass your exams and never use it. Okay, that is not correct. Okay, even yesterday, and this again, as I told in the previous lecture, and I will continue to do that. Sometimes I will be touching upon the practical aspects of software engineering. Okay, so this is again something practical that will almost certainly happen to you, that one of your colleagues will leave the project without notice. Okay, sometimes they are also fired, but in this case, the colleague, he left without notice and he did not give a knowledge transfer, what we call KT, about a very complicated piece of code that he had written. Okay, he had just sent out an email to one of my colleagues before leaving, I mean the managers, and he had just given a few words about 5 components that he had created. Okay, now they are all very complicated, and what he had done was that what he had not done was to create a pseudocode. Okay, so he had not written the pseudocode in any of his code components. So my first thing now is, if I have to understand what he has written, is that I have started writing the pseudocode myself. Okay. Now the thing is that it is on a different computer, and for several reasons, I will not be able to share that with you. But what I'm trying to emphasize is the importance of pseudocode, flowcharts, these things. Okay, I have used flowcharts several times in the past. Okay, sometimes the understanding of a problem is easier if you use flowcharts. Okay, and very frequently you will have very complicated algorithms to code for. Okay, and I did me and my team did implement some very complicated algorithms about say 3 to 4 years ago, that helps these judges, that high court judges, supreme court judges, these people, it helps them to decide what they have to do with a defendant that has been presented in front of them, and it is being used extensively in the state of New Jersey. Okay, that is one of the states in the USA. All right, and it was I mean, we got a very big appreciation from our clients when we completed that algorithm, and it works like a charm. We had also done performance enhancement in that, and that algorithm would supply the answer in maybe a matter of maybe half a second to a second. Okay, whereas it spans a lot of backend systems. Okay, and all that. So that algorithm was complicated, that much I can tell you. Okay, it has several parts, and so that helped us. So we would create flowcharts and pseudocode to understand how to write that algorithm. Okay, so these are practical things that I can share with you as and when needed. So now flowcharts and pseudocode. So one thing that you can write. Okay, so this is, I will write the pseudocode that I was using yesterday. All right, and which I've started writing. Yeah, this one. All right, now see this thing. So I'll get rid of this one and I will write the one that I was writing yesterday. Okay, so this is actually happening. Okay, it is not like I'm making it up just to convince you guys. Okay, so fetch the list of okay. So this is for one of the top banks in the US. Again, for privacy reasons, I will not be able to share the name of that bank. Okay, so what they are doing is that they have people who are they are the end users of the application. Okay, so what we call end user communities. All right. So whenever you build an application, they will be used by certain set of people. Okay, and these applications that we are talking about, they are used internally by the team, except for some people who are from outside the bank. Okay, they might be using it or they will be approving some tasks that are assigned to them. Okay, anyway, so the end use some of the end users that are using the application might be moving out of the team. Okay, and I'm talking about the end users, not the developers this time. Okay, they might be moving out of the team. Okay, so they each of them have something called a producer ID associated with them. All right, if they leave, what happens is that there is a backend system called iGate. On that system, their producer ID becomes inactive. Okay, so now what our requirement is that whenever they become inactive, we have to create some tasks for the other users that are in that team. All right, so what we are doing is we are you know what a daemon process is, right? Is it possible for me to type here on Microsoft Teams? Let me see. I think there is.
Actually, the chat is not available. Microsoft Teams.
Oh, okay, okay, fine. So there is something called a daemon process. Okay, so what we are doing is that there is a daemon process that runs. Okay, it is a background process. Let me put it this way: it is a scheduled task that runs every day at say 10 a.m. All right. So what it does is it fetches the list of inactive producer IDs. Okay, for each inactive producer ID and see how I am. This is the how you write pseudocode. So I'm giving you an example. Okay, I can give you a simple example also, but this is I mean I can give you a theoretical example. This is a practical example. All right, for every inactive producer ID. So I'm going to simplify this pseudocode just so that you get the idea. Okay, so for each and again every time you write the opposite for and for. Okay, for each and for again see I will if producer see here again if I'm writing if then is important and if is important. Okay, that is how you write pseudocodes. And if producer ID is equal to P, then here I'm going to simplify this because I don't want to waste too much time on this. Do or Okay. Now see, this is how you write a pseudocode. Now you may not understand the exact requirements, all right, and this is not really the exact pseudocode that I am writing, but it is much more elaborate. Okay, it is already maybe 50, 60 lines. Okay, but you will notice a few things. It is very well indented. Okay, written clearly. Okay, what you have to do is to write down your thoughts in the pseudocode. That's all. Okay, so that you understand and the other people in your team understand. That is the importance of a pseudocode. Okay, now unfortunately I don't have an ability to create a flow chart. Okay, but flowcharts are again very important, and see to it that you learn the various shapes. So what is the importance of a rhombus? What is the importance of a diamond shape? Okay, these things are important. Okay, so in fact, in one of the projects that I worked on, the business team, and this again is a term, business team. Okay, what is a business team? They are the ones who will be giving you the requirements. Okay, when you start working. Okay, it does not matter whether you will be working on C language or C++ or some tool like the one that I'm using. There will be a team that will give you the requirements. Okay, so in one of my projects, the business team had done a very good job, and they had given us the requirements in the as flowcharts. Okay, so it was very easy for us to understand the requirement and code for it. And in fact, the tool that I use, it actually uses flowcharts. Okay, so if you create a flowchart uh, using the shapes that it has in its palette, it just goes ahead and executes that flowchart. Okay, that is an oversimplified example, or rather an oversimplified explanation of the tool that I use. All I'm trying to do is to emphasize the importance of using flowcharts. So during your own time, see to it that just go through the various shapes, okay, and understand how those flowcharts can be built. So that is one thing. Um, all right, so that is the pseudocode. Now see, if I have to build this, all right, once my pseudocode is built, it becomes very easy for me to now write the code. Okay, so what I can do is I can write a C++ code. Okay, and all I have to do is, in fact, when I used to work on Visual Basic, I used to write the pseudo code, and then say, for example, I'm writing a program. This will go at the top as a comment. Okay. Now let me try to save this. And I will say it is C source. Okay, now see, you have your pseudo code, then you write okay. So you see the importance of this having a pseudocode. Okay, so in my case, what I would do is I would plonk that pseudocode at the top, paste it at the top of the program, and then copy and paste the individual portions and code for them. Okay, so this is something that I learned from one of my seniors, maybe about 20 years ago when I started my career. Okay, he was pretty good in his work and very respected fellow, and he was my sort of a mentor. He was everybody's mentor. Okay, so he had taught me this. He said that just write the pseudocode and then fill up the blanks with your actual code. So uh, all I'm trying to emphasize is the importance of pseudocode and then how to translate that to your actual code. Okay, now I will take a pause here. Does anybody have any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, fine.
No, sir.
No? Okay, all right, fine. So I will continue with this, and I'll try to uh, keep a good pace at this point, because the things that we are going to learn later. Yes, yeah, go ahead, please.
Sir, I'm very new to C language, so I don't know, sir, that first instruction which you have written on that page, it is necessary to write. Yeah, sir, before that green color
This
one.
one?
Yeah.
Oh, this
No,
one.
sir, that
So,
green color one.
so the green color one is a comment. All right. This is the comment, and this is the pseudocode that you are going to implement. It is not necessary, okay, but it is a good programming practice. Okay, so this code that you will see the actual code that I would write over here will implement this pseudocode. Okay, now in C language, it is difficult to separate this pseudocode or comment from your actual code. Okay, whereas the tool that I use has a separate tab for the comment. So I have the piece of code on one tab and the comment on another tab. So in the comments, I always put the pseudocode. Okay, so as I told you that I'm trying to understand a daemon process that has been created by one of my colleagues. Okay, but I create such things all the time. Whenever I do that, I put the pseudocode as a comment there. Here, because you are coding in C language, okay, it is not possible for us to have the comment separately. All right. So it will be visible all the time. It cannot be put on a separate tab. Okay, it is up to you to answer your questions. To answer your question, this is not mandatory. Okay, but it is a good idea to put the code here. In fact, what I would have done is, let me show you the exact thing, the way I used to code, and it was very much appreciated was this. Okay, now watch carefully, please. So I put the pseudocode here. Okay, I will, because it is inside the function, I will indent it a little bit. All right, good. Now what I would do is, because I have my sorry. Wait. Okay, now let me explain what I did. All right. So what I did was that pseudocode is there at the top. That is for everybody to see at a glance what is happening. All right. Now what I did was that I copied the first piece and put it here. The first, sorry, when I said first piece, let me be a little elaborate. The first thing that we are supposed to do as part of the pseudocode, I copied that comment, put it here. Okay. And now I have another function. Okay. Now this function will probably be later on. Okay. And this also can have its own pseudocode. So we can have a pseudocode for this one also. Again, I'm going to write, I might be using some terms that are straight from the tool that I'm using. Okay, so okay, so this activity word, okay, it is something like a function in C language. All right, in the tool that I use. So this is, and I have my to-do list, what I have to do, and I just create this over here. So what I'm trying to tell you is the importance of using pseudocodes in your whatever programming language you use. All right. So again, to answer your questions, documentation is not important. I mean, sorry, documentation is not mandatory. Okay, but it is very important. It will not only help you, but also help the next developer. And it will be very common for you to move from one project to the other. Okay, so if you do that and if you leave behind good documentation, the next developer will find it easier to take over from your code. Okay, so that is one thing. And also, if you document properly and design properly, it will be easier for you to work also. And one more thing that I can give, another practical tip that you should remember is when you actually start working in the industry, see to it that you give enough time for designing the code and writing the pseudocode and all that. Be sure about what you are doing. In my case, I frequently spend about 80% of the time designing the code and 20% actually building the code, building and unit testing. And don't be surprised, be patient about this. Okay, don't lose patience and think that, oh, okay, fine, let me start the code helter skelter and we will see what happens later. It is a very unhealthy thing to do. You will get into trouble very often. Okay, so take it slow, be steady about it. Okay, and again, another practical advice, you will be under pressure from a lot of people all the time. Okay, you should learn how to ignore them. So if you are following your procedures, there are a lot of people who will not understand the importance of following those procedures, and they will try to apply pressure on you to be like them. Okay, but always try to set good examples instead of following bad examples. Try to set good examples for the others to follow. All right, so do it the right way always. Okay, so start with good habits from day one. All right, right from right now. Okay, not say after you start working or from tomorrow. No, start right now. Okay, it will help you later on. Once you have good habits, it will give you good dividends all the time. Okay, I still benefit. If you see, even after so many years of experience, I work directly. Okay, most people they kind of move away from coding and they just go and give orders to others and do nothing worthwhile. Okay, I'm not doing that. Okay, so if
So I have a
uh,
small question.
sure.
Sir, writing pseudocode is important, but sir, if we have a project with a specific deadline and we have a less time than to write a pseudocode, so what shall we do? Do we still
So
write pseudocode and then write code?
yeah, so see, if you are under a tight deadline, okay, it means that your project manager was sleeping on his job. All right, so
Yes.
you need to tell them. Okay, so in our case, I push back. I tell them that you might be having all these deadlines and all that. I'm not interested. Okay, and be firm on that. okay, and tell them that this is the amount of time that you are going to take, okay, and more often than not they will adjust. Okay, so this is what I'm trying to teach you is nothing to do with the programming. Okay, it is human engineering. Okay, more often than not what will happen is that suppose you have a manager and the client has told them that okay, we have to do it by say the 7th of August. Okay, your manager will come and say we have to do it by the 5th of August. Okay, now if that, because he is going to keep a buffer of 2 days, all right, that is fine. Okay, but if it is aggressive for you, let them know. And it is not going to, in most of the projects that you will be working on, deadlines can be extended by a little bit. Okay, there is nothing wrong with it. But the problem, except for some of them, in one of the projects that I worked on, the one that I talked about where the algorithm was complex, we had to do it because they had passed a law in the parliament. Okay, and the government had decided that we have to build it by a certain time. Okay, so we used to work during weekends, but that was more of an exception. Okay, but if you have a tight deadline, the first thing is to push back. Okay, if necessary, get aggressive about it, no problem, but don't compromise on your code quality all the time. All right. So, and if that happens
So one
a
more
lot.
small thing. Like
Okay.
sometimes I some make programs for personal use. So if means only I know the code and no one else do anything about the code. So then also I have to write a pseudo code.
Yeah, you never know when somebody will find it important. Pseudocode is important not only for others, it is important for you also to understand what you're doing. Okay, you will be surprised how often you find faults in your code and better ways of writing the code. Okay, so first write the code and pseudocode and always get it reviewed by somebody else. Okay, so follow the procedure. If you are having to cut corners too often, okay, it means you are working in the wrong project. Okay, so look for somebody else, some other place to work. All right. So in my case, I am very firm. I say that, okay, I am not going to do this all the time. Okay, you don't like it. And I have left projects because of that. Okay, I just say goodbye, I'm going. Okay, so don't compromise on these things. All right. So if somebody is asking you to do this very often, it means you are working in the wrong project. Okay, just say goodbye to them, pack your bags and leave. Okay, so it has happened. I'm telling you, it has happened a few times. The result, now I'm working in a project that I absolutely love. Okay, everything is very systematic, very streamlined. So the managers and all that, they follow the procedures and they encourage the team members to follow the procedures. In this same project that I'm working on, I was practically the only one who was following the procedures at the very beginning, and people used to make fun of me. I kept my patience. The result, maybe about 3 to 4 months ago, when our code actually started getting tested, my code was having the minimum bugs. Everybody else was getting into trouble. Okay, what's the point of cutting corners at the beginning? Okay, when later on you have to clean up your code. Okay, so now they have started listening to me and they have said that every team member will be following the procedures and they are keeping an eye on the requirements. Okay, so those things, it will pay dividends later on. Be patient about it. Okay.
So
Okay.
another thing also I want to ask that, sir, the tool you are talking about is means, sir, your private project tool or it's open source tool for all of us to use. For example, you have told
Free
about
tool.
the tool that can
Yeah, it is a
flowchart to direct code.
yeah, it is in fact, let me do one thing. I will show you a few things in that. I have a personal edition of that. So okay, so I'm going to start the JVM. This will take maybe about 5 minutes to start. I will show this to you. Okay. Then you will understand what is the practical meaning of all that I was telling you.
Yes.
All right. So again, as I said, I will be giving you glimpses of how things are doing in the practical world. Okay, so this thing, so we have covered, I think, unit 1, but I will let you stare at it for some time. Okay, and let me know if you have some other questions before we go over to the next one. Okay, so this unit 1. And if anybody has any questions, we have a few minutes before that personal edition starts. And by the way, the name of that thing that you asked about is Pega Rules Process Commander, PRPC. Okay, in short, we call it Pega. Okay, you can search for that. In fact, you can go to a website called pega.com. Okay, so what it does is it generates the code in Java. All right, and it has got built-in capabilities of generating the user interface and also interfacing with the other systems using various methods like SQL or SOAP or JMS, EJB. So these things are available. It is a very rich tool. Obviously, it is expensive also. Okay, but I have the personal edition downloaded on my computer. So because I have an access to that website, I can download, and you will have access to that. There is another website. You will have access only if your employer is a business partner of the company. Okay, but I can give you a quick glimpse of what that fellow does. So
Yes, sir. I found the slide, sir. I will check
okay,
about it later.
yeah. So let this start. I think it is still starting. It takes a while. Okay, so it is starting up a few things. Agents, it has started. Yeah. All right. So this is the login screen of that tool. Okay, so I already have my user ID and password here. And let me log in. So this is the tool. Okay, so I am using 8.4.0 personal edition. Okay, so this is the tool that I use. Okay, and I was doing some experiment with Kafka. Okay, so Kafka is a broker, a message broker, and you can learn about that also. Okay, so you see that this is what I have, and let me see if, and I was telling you about activity rules, right? So right now what I'm doing, you may not understand everything that I'm doing, but I will quickly show you one example activity rule. Okay, so this is one. It is almost like a function in C language. Okay, so okay, so it has got these steps and all that. Okay, and as I was telling you where to write the pseudocode, so here I should give a description of each step. Okay, I did not. I was doing some quick and dirty programming because I wanted to test this method. Okay, it was going to help me in my next project, but that's fine. I should have put the description over here and the pseudocode here, or whatever is the algorithm. Even if it is a 2-line pseudocode, does not matter. Just give a description of what this does and the usage. All right. So this is the practical aspect of whatever we have learned so far. Okay. So I just wanted to give you a glimpse, and quickly, the other thing that I wanted to show you was a flowchart. Okay, so I'm going to give you just one example. So this is a very simple flowchart. Okay, it has a start shape, it has an end shape. This thing that you see is called an assignment. Okay, this is the one that will show the user interface to the user when this flow executes. Now we are not going to come here and execute the flow manually. As an end user, this will get invoked from the portal. Okay, so when the end user logs in, they will see something like this. This is the end user portal. Okay, let it load. It takes a little bit of time. it loads a lot of things. This is just an example end user portal. Okay, that I have not customized. Okay, it is just out of the box case user portal. So when they come here, okay, they will come here, click on new, and they will click on this. So onboarding is one of the flows that starts. Okay. So I have not yet configured it. That is why you are getting this default message. Okay, but the flows are there. Okay, so this is a flow. There are others also. Let me see. Yeah, this one. This one is a bit more complex. See, do you see this?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
this is a
Yes,
start.
Yes, sir.
Okay, it starts, it takes a decision, either yes or no. If it goes to yes, it goes to the next assignment. Okay, assignment is literally an assignment. Okay, what it happens is at that time it gets assigned to one of the end users. Okay, so for that we have got something called routing. Okay, so I will right click on this shape and I will show you the properties. So you'll see that it says that it goes to a work list. So this is the routing. Okay, when you hit this, who is going to work on it? That is decided from this configuration over here. All right. So again, I'm not going to go too deep into this. That is not really in our scope. But this is what I was telling you about flow chart and how it executes it. All right. So this is a brief glimpse. Okay. All right. So I will like to get back to our usual syllabus. Okay, but I wanted to give you a glimpse to encourage you guys to work hard. Okay, study hard. Okay, I have been working on this particular tool since 2004. All right, and I have never regretted it. So ultimately, you will be doing tool-based programming, but your basic programming skills will be tested all the time. Okay, so see to it that you don't start thinking that I don't need to write pseudocodes, or I don't need to understand how to write pseudocodes or create flowcharts. That is not true. Those things will help you till the very later stages of your career. Okay, so
So also just I want to confirm that any of the information you have shown is not confidential, because sir, this session has been recorded and it will be available publicly to students.
yeah,
So
that
if
is fine. This is I'm using a
okay,
personal edition. This is a
yes,
personal
sir.
edition. Okay, that's fine. Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you. And is it okay if we pause here and resume with this later on? Because this once I
Yes,
Yes.
start, this will take a little bit of time.
Okay, sir.
Okay. All right.
Yes, sir.
So, all right. Yeah. So again, see to it that you spend a lot of time learning on your own, studying and learning, and also try to do everything practically. Okay. This will help you later on. And apart from these books, I think they are written here somewhere. Yeah. Uh, there is for algorithms and all that, there is a very standard book. I'm sure you have read it. It is Tannenbaum, and there were three authors. I'm remembering the first one, Data Structures. Okay, so see to it that you read that book. It will help you a lot. Okay, and try to build your own data structures. I did cover one chapter on data structures in my book on C++. Okay, so I was able to get something and I will show you. Where was that? Hmm, yeah. So here, yeah, chapter 10. Here, this one. All right, so this is for a binary search tree. Okay, so again, you will notice that I have put comments here. Do you see?
Yes,
Of course,
sir.
this is in C++.
Yes.
Okay. So these things, it will help you. All right. So the reason why I'm touching upon this is that for data structures and all that, you should read Tenenbaum's book. And if you get a chance, go through chapter 10 of the book that I wrote on C++, but that is on C++, not on C. All right. So, and I think we can pause here, and I will be covering the rest of the syllabus next time. Okay, I will talk to Professor Rathod and fix the time for the next class. Okay, and possibly it will be somewhere in the middle of next week. Possibly not tomorrow because I have to go somewhere. But okay, I'll get back to you guys later. So, any questions? Anybody?
No, sir.
No, sir.
Okay, good. All right,
No,
thank
sir.
you so much.
No,
Okay, it
sir.
was very, yeah, all right, good. Okay, yeah, so see to it that if you have any questions, please send me on that WhatsApp channel, okay, and I will very happily be able to help you out, okay? All right,
Yep.
okay,
Yes, sir.
all right, thank you, thanks, bye.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks. Okay,
Thank
bye.
you,
Thank
sir.
you, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, bye.